Hey everyone, Chris here from VarsityGaming, and welcome to the 18th episode of Siege School. Today's topic is going to be map knowledge on the map Coastline. Coastline was the 6th map to be released during the season of Velvet Shell. This video is going to discuss a lot of different topics about the map, including which objective site is the best, the names and callouts of every single room on the map, operator picks, where to put your gadgets, and much more. The table of contents can be found down below in the description if you want to skip to specific parts in the video. And as per usual, first we're going to talk about the history of the map. Now this might be good news for some of you who don't like the history section. There really isn't much to talk about when it comes to Coastline. There have been no real life events that this map would be based on. Coastline is a map located in Ibiza, Spain. Ibiza is known around the world as a party island, and it really does show on Coastline. Pretty much anywhere you go on the map just screams clubs and parties. I did a quick search and looked on Google Earth, and I could not find any island that really represented this specific map in Ibiza. All the small islands around the city are pretty much uninhabited and primarily consists of rocks, at least as far as I can tell based on the most recent Google Maps image. I tried to do some research and some digging, and in the past at least 5 years or so, the only possible link that I could find, and I think it was a bit too recent, was an event that occurred in the end of 2016, where 2 people were arrested in Ibiza for suspected connections to ISIS. But there was no threat in the situation. As far as I know, they didn't raid an island just to go catch them. So the theorist in me maybe thinks that the GEO operators would be storming the island on Coastline looking for these 2 specific suspects. Although the connection is very unlikely because Ubisoft probably had this DLC planned before the event even occurred. I can't imagine that they'd be making the first DLC for year 2 only 6 months prior. I feel like they must have had this prepared well in advance. And that'll be it for the history section. There really wasn't much else I could find. I looked everywhere I could and really nothing popped out. So I'm sorry for those of you who like the history section, but we'll be moving on to the layout section of the video now. So for the layout portion, I'm going to do what I did last time, and that is put a video of the room on the screen and put a bunch of text over it, labeling specific callouts and areas. And then I'll voice over very important information relevant to the room. We'll start on the first floor, work our way to the second floor, and then I'm going to talk about some outside locations, because in the last video you guys asked if I could talk more about the outside. The first room we're going to talk about is the main lobby. Now there's not many callouts to know here, just the fact that there are a lot of doorways here. Main lobby connects to 4 different rooms: the bathroom, the courtyard, the hallway, and the CCTV room, as well as it has the main staircase. The only callouts you really need to know are reception and back lobby. Defenders like to hide behind the reception desk, as well as hiding behind the wall for reception. You can peek on either side of it towards the main door and usually get a pick or 2 as people are running up. And the next room we're going to talk about is CCTV. Technically the CCTV hallway is a separate room. It's called the sun room, but I've never heard anyone call it that, and realistically everyone just calls it CCTV hall because it's a tiny little rectangle next to it. But honestly, overall for CCTV, there's really nothing you need to know about it. I think ever since Coastline has come out, I've died in that room maybe once. No one ever goes in there. Really the only important thing to know is that you can get underneath the desk in the CCTV room, so you can hide in there if you're a defender and you want to wait. But like I said, hardly anyone ever goes in there, so the chance of an attacker walking by is pretty slim. And next is the offices. The 2 important callouts is the island and the peak corner. This is where a lot of defenders will sit and wait for people to push through the door on the south side. Couches is also somewhat of an important callout because you can break the hatch from aquarium and drop down into that corner. So if someone breaks that hatch, they'll likely be hiding in that corner unless they choose to just run away. And this is blue bar. The 2 big callouts are the bar itself and the couch corner. Most defenders will hide on the south side of bar, just crouched there waiting for someone to peek the window. And they can also peek towards the hallway, the sunrise bar, and the kitchen, all from that one bar. And couch corners is probably the second most common callout for blue bar, but I will say it's become much less common now. I've noticed much less people sitting there because it is very easy to get an angle from the window and just peek towards the corner. And if the attackers are pushing from offices, they can easily just peek the door and see you sitting there. However, you can open up the wall there and make a rotation hold a sunrise bar and use it more as a rotation area as opposed to just a camping corner. And this is sunrise bar. Pool entrance is technically its own room, but I just decided to incorporate it since there's no callouts in there. It's just a tiny little closet. Kind of the same way I did with the sunroom and CCTV. Sunrise bar is very open, which means that there's not many places to hide. Most people will hide behind the bar or the island. Very rarely will someone hide behind the couches. They'll usually only go there to break the window and try to spawn peek. If you make a rotation hole between blue bar and sunrise bar, then you can easily hide behind the island and run away through the impact hole if you need to get away. Otherwise, you can just camp behind bar and wait for them to push through the pool entrance and easily get an angle on them. And this is the kitchen. The 2 most common callouts are probably the shelf corner and the window corner. The shelf corner is where a lot of defenders will hide, and pretty much you'll always find someone there if you're attacking it. And the window corner is where all the attackers hide when they have to push in through the window at the last second. There's the location that I labeled sinks in the bottom right corner. I actually don't know what to call that. They aren't actually sinks, but they kind of look like it. I've seen more and more people hiding there where they just watch towards sunrise, and if someone pushes in on their right, they immediately peek out around the corner. However, it is a very risky spot because if anyone pushes in through sunrise or the hallway and they know where you are, they can instantly peek you and shoot you. Whereas with the shelf corner, I don't believe it's possible to get an angle without pushing into the room. With the only exception being from the room that we're going to talk about next, the service entrance. Technically, the bathroom isn't part of the service entrance, but I'm just going to include it because it's really close and I don't want to just do an L-shaped room for the service entrance. Now, the issue with service entrance is that there's a lot of shelves and a lot of different corners to call out. There's the bookcase, the fridge, the shelf, and shelf corner. Technically, these aren't all official names for them. I just chose different names because they're very similar to one another, but slightly different. And you don't want to have 3 different corners all called shelf corner. That just gets confusing. The desk is another important call out because much like CCTV room, you can hide inside of it or just wait there for someone to push in through the door to service entrance. And then you can also open up the bathroom wall if you want to watch the same doorway. Although I'd say probably the most common place to hide, at least to peek the door, is the rails. A lot of defenders will hide there because they know when the attackers shoot them, a lot of the bullets will hit the rails and not hit them. Meanwhile, since they're closer to the railing, they'll be less likely to hit the railings themselves and actually hit the attackers pushing. And as the last room for the first floor, it is courtyard. In all my time playing Coastline, I don't think I can ever remember one instance where someone was camping there or just trying to set up and wait. For the most part, the only time I ever see someone there is when they're roaming and they get caught in there. But in case someone does decide to set up, really there's only 2 callouts you need to know, the couch and the fireplace. You can lay down amongst the couches and watch towards the hallway, or you can crouch and sit in a corner by the fireplace and watch towards the main lobby. And the same goes for the second floor of courtyard for lack of callouts. There's really only one thing in the second floor, and that is the ledge. Attackers can drop down from the roof onto the ledge and then jump into the aquarium hallway. And they can't do anything over there, so really the only call you need is just that they are on the ledge itself. And continuing with second floor, we have the VIP room. The 4 big callouts are the donut/couch, the TV corner, the shelf corner, and the speakers. Shelf corner is probably the most popular callout because a lot of defenders like to sit there and hide thinking that they can be sneaky and that no one will notice them. More aggressive defenders will hide around the donut/couch because they want to be able to peek the window and also peek down the hallway. And speakers is also popular because a lot of people like to sit there and watch towards the hallway as well as the window. However, there's a really big lack of cover here, so I do not recommend hiding there. And this is Hall of Fame. Really not much needs to be said here besides just remember the name. It is incredibly important for both attacking and defending. If you're defending, you really need to know that call out because attackers will often push through there, and if you're attacking, you really need to know it because you need to know where to push through. As far as callouts go, tight corner is sometimes used, but it's very rare because if a defender is hiding there, then they're pretty much screwed. This is very much a rotation room as opposed to a camping room. It technically could be a run-out room for the defenders because you can run through there onto the balcony just to peek out any attackers who are over there. However, it is risky because it is such a small room, so it's very easy for the attackers to see you coming or get an angle on you before you can even peek. Alright, moving on to the room that Hall of Fame connects to is Penthouse. Penthouse is probably the room with the most callouts because there have been a lot of rooms so far that really only have 1 or 2 important callouts, but Penthouse has a lot. We'll start in the top left corner with a wardrobe. A lot of defenders do like to sit there and peek towards window, but it is risky because the wardrobe can be broken with grenades and bullets. So it's very easy to get killed even though you're hiding behind it. Bed is probably the second most popular place to hide, but you can also be shot through it, so be careful when doing so. And then there's also the default corner, as I call it, which is where the table is. If you impact grenade that, you can destroy the table and then hide behind that little tiny wall. The wall is indestructible, so you can't be shot from the window or from the shower or the Hall of Fame. The only thing you really have to worry about is theater. And there's cubby, which is basically the same thing as default corner, except for you don't have to destroy a table. Hatch is also not a bad place to hide, especially if you're playing secure area, because the box will be sitting there and you can peek between the box and the wall towards the window. The couches is probably where most of the action goes down because a lot of attackers will rappel in through the window or push in from bathroom and hide in the couch corner. And it's not uncommon for defenders to be hiding where it says behind couches. I know that is probably the most popular place for me to hide because I like to peek towards Hall of Fame and bathroom. And then there's a corner by a TV, which is very rare, I think, for defenders to hide in, but they do like to sit there in case if someone rappels up to main window and they try to peek them really quickly. Beyond that, as a defender, be very careful in this room. Main window sees into the entire room pretty much, and puts you at a high risk of getting shot if you're trying to run across. And it's also very hard for the defenders to beat an attacker rappelling on the window because they can usually get a much better angle. However, from the behind couches area, you can throw C4 and pretty much arc it perfectly to land right next to the window or explode mid-air. So if you know someone's rappelling there, consider sitting there to just throw C4. And technically another part of Penthouse is bathroom. This is 3 specific callouts: the shower, the corner, and the tub. Attackers will often drop into here and either run into the shower or run into the corner. Tub is a very rare place for them to be, but it is important to know. However, if you reinforce off the walls the bathroom, then really they only have 1 door to go through and that's the only thing you need to watch. You don't really have to worry about the specific callouts. And the next room is theater. It is its own room, but honestly in my head I always just imagine it as another extension of Penthouse. And it's probably because it's such an important room to hold when you're trying to defend penthouse. If you lose theater, you pretty much have lost the round if the attackers know what they're doing. The important places to know are the east and west corner because you can use that to peek into penthouse and also into hallway if you need to. And then there's also the couch and the table by it. A lot of defenders will lie down or crouch peeking towards the hallway from there. And if necessary, you can also peek all the way across the Hall of Fame if the attackers are pushing from over there. And this is the aquarium hallway. The three important calls to know are the hatch, the peeking window to balcony, and then also the window to the ledge. I classify this room the same as I did to Hall of Fame, is that it's very much a rotation room. You really won't get much use out of it besides rotating from the aquarium all the way to the penthouse. And connecting to Aquarium Hall is the aquarium itself. The two important calls are the bar and the couches. Defenders will usually hide between these two because it's very hard for an attacker to get an angle on them. The balcony is also incredibly important because that is where most attackers will come from. Moving on to the second last room on second floor is billiards. Billiards there aren't too many calls because it is very hard to hide in this room. With the giant window facing towards West Side Ruins, it is very hard for any defender to just sit on site. So for the most part, people will leave it and watch it from aquarium or hookah lounge or the hallway. But if you do need to make callouts for the room, I'd say the most important ones are probably the bar and the mini corner, as well as the table corner. Table corner is probably the most popular because you can hide there and peek towards the balcony for hookah. It's very easy to get an angle and they can't really see you unless they're peeking from the exact same spot. The bar is kind of a last-ditch effort to defend and you'll be usually watching towards the hallway. And then there's the mini corner where if you're getting pushed from multiple angles, a lot of people will rotate between here. I didn't really know what to call it because it's not necessarily a corner, but it is a little piece of indestructible wall that you can rotate between depending on where they're pushing you from. But it has incredibly little cover, so it's not really a good place to hide. And the last room for the inside of the map is the hookah lounge. Most people just call it hookah. The biggest callout is the bar. Most defenders will hide behind there if they're trying to hold that room. The couches is an important callout for defenders to make towards attackers. If an attacker is pushing in, they'll very likely push either from the window or from the balcony door and then hide behind that little wall next to the couches. And then there's also the generic callout of just the balcony. If you know someone's out there, you can just say they're on hookah balcony and people will know what you mean. And now we're going to move on to the outside locations. These locations are going to have almost no callouts at all, just remember the name of the location itself. For the most part, if you ever do want to make a callout on one of these locations, all you really have to do is just say the cardinal direction, so either north, east, south, or west. There's like one or two exceptions, so I'll make sure to mention them while we go through them. The first of the outside locations is the DJ booth. This is a north side balcony outside a VIP room, Hall of Fame, and bathroom. This is a very popular place for attackers to push to try to control VIP room and Hall of Fame. There really aren't any places for the attackers to hide, so you can either just say left or right. There really aren't any specific callouts. And the second balcony is a hookah balcony. Kind of like DJ booth, there's really no callouts, but if you want to be very specific when telling people where they are on hookah balcony, just say staircase or at the L corner. A lot of attackers will lay down or crouch next to the L corner and peek towards the hookah doorway. This way if a defender runs out, they can get the shot on them. And the third and final balcony is the aquarium balcony. Since it's just a tiny little surface, there's no callouts at all for it except for the peek window when you're attacking. If a defender goes to the aquarium hallway window, they can peek directly onto the balcony and usually get a shot off. The only place they can't see is if you're lying down in the northwest corner of the balcony. And beyond balconies, we have ruins. Ruins is only ever really used if you're defending the hookah and billiards area. Attackers will usually position themselves either on the staircase or next to the little section I marked walls. It's not the most common spot because it is actually incredibly hard to see into the room from over here. But persistent attackers might just sit there and wait for the entire round just to get a one pick, so make sure to call out if someone's at ruins. And then moving back to the east side of the map, we have two callouts that are very important when you're defending the penthouse and theater rooms. The first one being gazebo. What attackers can do is rappel up onto the roof, go onto the ledge, and then jump down to... What attackers can do is rappel up onto the roof, jump onto the ledge, and go up towards the purple sheet thing. If you look at it at about a 45-degree angle and just spam space, you'll eventually get up there, and then all you have to do is go towards the edge like shown, and then jump down into the gazebo. From there you can run around pretty much anywhere. You can fall through the slates sometimes, so be careful where you step. Once you drop onto there, you can look into the room through the window. They can see quite a bit into the room, but keep in mind they're also incredibly visible while doing this. And really the only important area is the ones inside of the red rectangle. And then for those who are more parkour challenged, we have the vents. It's a building to the northeast of penthouse. If you rappel up, you can hide behind the vents and peek into the room from the window. You really can't get much view from here, but it can help get a pick if they're running between penthouse and theater. And that is it for the layout of the map. Now we have that covered, I'm going to move into the objectives. First we'll start with bomb and then move on to secure area and then move on to hostage. And like I've done with past videos, I'll give most of the information during bomb and then some more information on secure and then almost no information on hostage. because there's no point in me saying the exact same things over and over again for the exact same objective sites. This portion might be a little short and a little brief because I did actually do all of it, and then for some reason Adobe decided to crash and not save any of it. I have it set to autosave every 5 minutes, but it didn't save for the last 2 hours. So pretty much all the work I just did was completely erased. So all the information I give you for this next section will be very brief, and I probably won't be adding much footage. Alright, for bomb, the best site to defend by far is the penthouse/theater room. General setup is you want to reinforce all the walls between penthouse and VIP, and then all the hallway facing walls in theater, so that's a total of 9 walls. And you want to open up the bottom part of the bathroom wall. This way you can see their feet when they land inside and they can't see you. You can also make a rotation hole between the 2 rooms by breaking the wall on the east side of the doorway between the 2 sites. You probably want to have 1 person on each of the objectives and the rest of the team roaming, and also 1 person sitting in VIP. If you can prevent them from pushing VIP and breaking the wall between that and penthouse, then you're pretty much guaranteed to win. The second best site to defend would be the billiard/hookah site. You want to reinforce all 4 walls from the billiards facing towards the courtyard, and if you want you can reinforce the 2 walls between aquarium and billiards. And you can make a rotation hole between hookah and billiards, and then if you want you can reinforce the 2 walls next to that. You generally want to have 1 person sitting on hookah, someone like Smoke, because the preferred site to push is hookah. So if you have Smoke sitting there and they jump in through the window and try to plant behind the little couches, he can just smoke it off. And besides that, you have 1 person aquarium and you don't want anyone on billiards. Billiards is very hard to hold because there's nowhere for you to hide and nowhere for you to peek. All you can really do is just sit behind bar and wait, which is not what you want to do. Third best site to defend would be the kitchen/service entrance area. Some people argue that it's better than hookah, but I personally do not like it at all. The reason being is because there's almost nowhere you can hide on kitchen site because they can see you from almost every angle. If they push in from the hallway, they can see half the room. If they push in through the window, they can see another half of the room. And then if they're also pushing from service entrance, they can see the entirety of the room at that point. So in general, I just do not like holding that site. But if you are going to hold it, the general setup is to reinforce all the kitchen walls and then the service entrance walls facing towards the main lobby. And you can use 1 reinforcement to reinforce the wall between the 2 sites and then make a rotation hole right next to it. This way if someone's hiding in the shelf corner, they can peek towards the service entrance site. So you have 1 person in kitchen, 1 person in service entrance, and you can also have 1 person in bathroom if you want. The rest will be roaming. And the last site to defend would be the blue bar/sunrise bar location. Personally, I think it is absolutely horrible and not worth defending, because in sunrise bar there's a lot of nooks and crannies that the attackers can hide in and plant without being shot. And on top of that, you really don't want to be hiding on blue bar or sunrise because there's so many different ways you can get shot. But if you do choose to defend it, then make sure to reinforce all 6 walls on blue bar, and then don't reinforce any walls between the site. Instead, make a rotation hole by the couches like I said earlier. And that'll be it for the bomb sites. Keep in mind that these are all my own personal opinion, and there's probably strategies out there that make one site better than the other that I'm not aware of. So take this for what it's worth. As well, I know that was really brief, so I apologize if people wanted a lot more in-depth detail. I had a lot of info, but I just don't want to go through another 2 hours making the exact same information I just did. And now we'll be moving on to the secure area sites. This list might look a little familiar to you because it is exactly the same as bomb. The best secure area site to defend is penthouse. You'll be defending it almost exactly the same way that you would defend bomb, pretty much down to a T. The only differences being the obvious one is that the secure area is 1 less room and that you really don't have to hold theater as much as you normally would. But you pretty much want to do the same thing. Hold VIP, hold theater, hold penthouse, and you're pretty much good to go. And then just like bomb, the second best site would be billiards. This one you can defend a tiny bit differently if you want. You don't necessarily need a rotation hole between billiards and hookah, but if you want, you can have one. I usually make one. And then you have 1 person sitting in VIP room to watch the hallway, 1 person watching the cool vibe staircase, and also 1 person sitting in aquarium. The rest can roam if they want to. And then we have kitchen, which I think is a little bit easier to defend on secure area than it is on bomb. It's much safer to hide in the shelf corner than it would be on bomb because all you have to do is just sit on site and wait for them to push you. Where in bomb you have to leave that corner and expose yourself. The only difference between this and bomb is that you wouldn't make that rotation hole like I mentioned before. Instead, you just want to completely reinforce that off. But you still want to have at least 1 person in kitchen, 1 person defending service area, maybe 1 in bathroom if you want. The rest can roam. And then lastly we have blue bar, which I think is actually a lot easier to defend for secure area than it is on bomb, but it is still the worst secure area site. Basically, you only want 1 person on site, you want to reinforce off all the walls. Then you have people watching from offices, sunrise, and kitchen, and pretty much prevent any attacker from pushing in. If you have someone in offices, they can just watch the window, and as soon as an attacker jumps in, just shoot them, which is also what the person with the blue bar can do. And then if they do push in and start securing, they're stuck in a tiny small room, you can just push in and pick them off on the 2 corners that they can hide in. And that is it for secure area. So the exact same list for both game modes, but just slight variations on how you defend them. And lastly we have hostage, which I really don't cover too much because almost no one plays it, but I will just give you the very brief outline of why one side is better than the other. The best site to defend for hostage by far is theater. The reason being is that there's no direct windows out of sight. The closest path is to rappel in through the penthouse window, run into theater, grab the hostage, and then run out the same way. So the distance between the window to the hostage gives the defenders at least some time to react to what's happening. Other possible paths are to run outside of theater down to the main staircase and out through the main lobby, or to go out towards DJ booth. But all of these are very long paths and give the defenders time to react. And then the second best site to defend would be kitchen. Remember all those things I said were really bad about kitchen for secure area and bomb? Turns out they're pretty damn good for hostage. Basically, because of how big the room is, it is very hard for the attackers to run in. Their only hope is to run in through that little window right next to the hostage. But if you have someone camping in service entrance, they can easily just shoot the person as they run in. And then also, if you completely cover that area in barbed wire and traps, then they're pretty much dead as soon as they jump in. And any other way that they go to grab the hostage would take a long ass time, so that's really not a viable option for them. And the third best site to defend would be VIP. There really aren't many benefits to defending it. It's a pretty shitty site overall, but it is better than Blue Bar. Basically, the only viable option the attackers have is to jump in through the main window, jump over the couch, and then grab the hostage and escape the same way. So you can have one set up in the default corner, one set up by the speakers, and one set up by a TV, and just wait for them to jump in. Kind of like kitchen going in through any other way is not that viable of an option. And then just like every other game mode, Blue Bar is by far the worst place to defend. For hostage, it is way too small and is way too close to a window. The attackers can vault in through that window, grab the hostage, get out. And the defenders really don't have much to contest them with. The room is super small, so like I said before, you can only have 1 or 2 people hiding on site and they can easily be picked off. The rest of the people will have to defend from outside of sight, and with hostage, that's not that viable of an option because then you have to shoot a moving target as opposed to someone who's just camping and waiting for you to approach them. And that is it for the objective sites. Again, sorry I was a little rushed and brief. I'll try to cover it a lot more next time, but there honestly wasn't too much to say about these objective sites. I think they kind of speak for themselves. And now we've covered objectives, we're going to move on to the operator tiers. I'm going to go through the attacking operators and then the defending operators, breaking them down into different tier sections. I'll have 3 tiers, top, middle, and lower. The top tier ones are the operators I highly recommend you pick every single round, but they aren't absolutely necessary. Middle tier operators are what you should fill the rest of your team with after you've picked the top tier operators, and then there's lower tier operators which work in very specific situations for very specific tactics, but I wouldn't recommend picking them just to pick them. Alright, and we'll start with the attacking operators. There are 3 that I think are top tier: Hibana, Blackbeard, and Ashe. Hibana's only really necessary on the penthouse objective site, but it is the top pick objective site for every single game mode, so I think she's a big pick. Basically what you want to do is push in through VIP and break the penthouse wall. If you can make a crouch hold there, you can either push in to secure the area or to plant the bomb. And keep in mind, like I said before, no one really plays hostage, so I don't really account for hostage when making my operator picks. And then we have Blackbeard, who's just really good because there's a lot of windows and a lot of bars in this map, so he has a lot of places to hide behind and peek from. And Ashe is a really good pick because she's fast, she has a good gun, and she can peek around a lot of corners. And since Coastline, I think, is a map very much focused on camping on site, Ashe would be really good for peeking people just waiting in a corner. Come with the fact that her grenade launcher can destroy the roof above her, and a lot of the floors are destructible, so she can peek people from below. And then moving on to the middle tier operators, we have Thermite, Thatcher, Monty, Twitch, Buck, IQ, and Ying. Thermite's kind of the same boat as Hibana. The only site he's really necessary on is Penthouse. It's just Hibana is better because she has lower risk of being shot since she can shoot in her pellets from the DJ booth, while Thermite has to push in and plant his charge on the wall. Thatcher's an okay pick because he can just destroy electronics in general, but you don't really need him for bandits or mutes because anywhere where they can put a bandit or mute, you can shoot from windows or other doorways. Coastline includes a lot of small narrow hallways, so Monty can be really good for pushing towards the objective. However, since this map is a circle, it's very easy for someone to circle around and shoot Monty in the back. Twitch is decent on this map because there's a lot of drone holes in each of the rooms, so it's very easy to move the Twitch drone around and destroy gadgets as well as shocking people. Buck is really good for the same reason that I mentioned Ashe earlier, is the vertical destructibility. He can go below the rooms and break the floors below the defenders. And this is also the same reason why I think IQ is really good, is that she can go below and destroy all the gadgets while scanning them through the floor. Ying I think is decent here because a lot of the rooms on this map are very small and compact, so throwing in her Candela can pretty much blind an entire room. And now we have the lower tier operators. These are operators I don't think are really ever necessary to pick on this map. These include Fuse, Sledge, Capital, Blitz, Glaz, and Jackal. First we have Fuse, and that kind of speaks for itself. His only saving grace is that you can cluster charge from the second floor to the first floor in a lot of rooms on this map. However, any decent player will easily be able to hear him cluster charging from above and get out of the room in time. And since the rooms are small, the cluster charges will get stuck in there and they won't really move outside. And next we have Sledge, who I think is a good operator overall, but a lot of the walls to site are going to be reinforced on every single objective site, so you really don't need him for destructibility. His only real destructibility is from second floor down, but almost anyone can do that with breach charges. And then we have Capital, who's an okay pick because, like I said earlier, a lot of defenders like to camp on this map. However, in order to peek those corners, he has to expose himself a lot and position himself correctly, so he's at a very high chance of getting shot while trying to crossbow someone. And then we have Blitz, who kind of suffers the same thing as I said about Monty earlier, is that this map is a circle, so people can easily circle around him and get him from the back. And since a lot of these rooms are very long and narrow, his flash doesn't really help him, and people have a lot more time to react. And then we have Glass, who's only really good if the defenders are defending either Penthouse or Billiards, and even then he's not that great. Because he can sit on ruins or on the gazebo and snipe in through the windows, but there's not too much visibility, he's kind of putting himself at risk by doing that. And plus, almost anyone else can do that, so you really don't need Glass specifically. And then we have Jackal, whose gadget kind of becomes useless simply because if he starts tracking someone, they can run around and get through the map very easily. There's a lot of different places to vault through, and you can go from second floor to first floor incredibly easy with the courtyard. So tracking someone will be a big hassle on this map. And that's it for the attacking operators. Now we're going to move on to the defending operators. And for the defending operators, we have 4 operators which I think are top tier: Smoke, Ella, Jaeger, and Rook. Smoke is incredibly good for defending on Coastline because there are very few doorways for the attackers to push through on every single map, and usually they're very close together. So one smoke canister can block off 2 or 3 entrances at once. As well, with all the small indestructible walls on each site, you can easily sit there and wait for someone to push in and then peek around the corner with smoke shotgun and just destroy them. And then we have Ella, and I'm just going to combo this with Jaegers, that they're both incredibly good roamers. And Coastline is overall, in my opinion, a camping map, but it does lend itself a lot to roamers. Like I said earlier with Jackal, is that with the courtyard, people are easily able to roam. You can be in an aquarium hallway and get towards the sunrise bar in like 5 seconds. So with Ella and Jaeger, you can easily move around the map and try to flank people as much as you can. And then Rook overall is just an amazing anchor. He can easily sit on site and wait in any of the corners I mentioned earlier. Moving on to the middle tier operators, we have Doc, Mute, Pulse, Legion, Valkyrie, Kapkan, Mira, and Bandit. I think I mentioned this in other C-School videos, is that I think Doc is better than Rook, but I chose Rook over Doc simply because I mentioned before there's a lot of rotation holes you want to make on this map. So Rook definitely is the higher pick since he has impact grenades and Doc doesn't. However, if your team brings a lot of impact grenades, you can easily choose Doc over Rook. But anyways, Doc is the same thing as Rook. He's just an incredibly good anchor, and there's a lot of different corners he can hide in. Mute's a decent pick because there's a lot of walls to defend on every single objective, so you can put Mute Jammers to cover a lot of different walls. As well, since they can be spread out decently and still cover more area, they're a lot better than Bandits because the attackers won't be able to destroy them as easily. And then we have Pulse, who's overall a good roamer, and he can easily run around scanning people through walls. If he scans from the first floor up to the second floor where the attackers are, then he can C4 them through the floor in a lot of different rooms. Legion's good here because there's a lot of long and narrow hallways on Coastline, so you can put up traps at the end of hallways, and then when someone sets it off, you can peek them and then easily destroy them. Valkyrie's in the same boat as Legion, except for instead of traps, she has cameras. So you put down the camera, peek down the entire hallway, and then once you see someone, get off the camera and peek them. Kapkan, with his recent buff, has definitely moved up to the middle tier because he can put down a lot of traps across this map since there's a lot of different doorways and catch people off guard. Mira's a middle operator because she has a lot of good locations to put her mirror windows. I'm going to talk about that a lot more in the next section. And there's Bandit, who's also just overall a really good roamer and can also be used to deny entry into the walls. But like I said earlier, Mute's better at entry denial, but Bandit's better at roaming. And then moving on to low tier defenders, we have Caveira, Tachanka, Frost, Echo, and Castle. And I get shit on this every single time I talk about it, but I think Cav's a low tier operator. Even though Coastline does lend itself well to roamers, Cav is still just overall not good, at least for the levels that I play at. Keep in mind I'm playing at Platinum level on PC, so people will hear Cav coming from a mile away and prep for that. But in the lower ranks and on console, I think she's a much bigger threat, especially on this map. Then we have Tachanka, which I really don't need to give a reason for, and next we have Frost. Frost really isn't that good because there's not many good places to put her traps. Pretty much any of the windows that she can put it at, people can rappel up onto and shoot the trap before they jump in. Echo's another low tier operator, simply because if you're on your drone and not paying attention, the enemy team can easily drone you out and shoot you from below. While this can happen with almost any other operator, you can at least react to it in time because you won't be distracted with a drone. Meanwhile, Echo, you won't even notice that you're being shot until you're already dead. And lastly, we have Castle. Castle works for a lot of different strategies on Coastline, but overall he's really not that necessary. Most people will have ways to destroy the castles without putting themselves at risk, and that's pretty much just a waste of a gadget. You should be using your castles in a way that you can get a pick while someone's trying to break the castle door itself. You shouldn't be giving them free access to break the barricade. And that is it for the operator tier list. Now we're going to move on to specific gadget placements. What this means is places where you can place your gadget and get the most use out of it. Alright, first we're going to talk about Valkyrie camera placements. This is probably the most requested topic in the last episode of Siege School. A lot of people really wanted to know where to put Valkyrie cameras. And I was going to cover it in last week's episode, but I ran out of time and didn't have time to add it in. But this week I found a couple good places where you can throw them. First up is a simple spot. In the second floor hallway outside a VIP room, there's a little potted plant. You can throw your camera on the exact spot that I'm showing you, and your camera will blend in with the grass. or with the plant thing, whatever you call it. And then when you hop on the camera, it can see pretty much the entire hallway. Next is in the hookah lounge. I've used this camera before, and a lot of times people don't even notice it. You put it on the east side of the little chandelier thing, and people will usually walk right by it. Because the thing is, when attackers are pushing in, they normally don't check their back as soon as they push into a room. And because of this, the camera will be there and they won't see it. Obviously, the only downside is if they do turn around and look at it, it'll be very obvious. It's just you're really hoping on the fact that they won't turn around. And since we're already in hookah, if you move outside, right where the balcony is, there's a little overhead roof. You can throw your camera on there and it kind of blends in with the dark wood. It can see out into the entire ruins area and goes 360 degrees. And going more out towards the ruins, you can go to the billiards window and just throw a camera anywhere in the ruins. However, it does stand out a lot. Since the ruins are white and the camera is black, it's just very hard not to see it. So I highly recommend trying to aim for the bushes. If you can land it inside these little palm trees / bushes, then it is very easy to get away with it. As you can see when I look outside the window, you can barely see the second camera that I threw. But the camera itself can see a lot out into the ruins. So try aiming for the foliage. Moving back towards theater, there's this little, I don't know what to call it, I guess a bookshelf inside the wall where they have a bunch of little pots and stuff. You can throw your camera onto these little ornament things and it'll usually blend in pretty well. Or you can destroy them and have the camera take its place. A lot of people won't check here since it's indented into the wall, and if they just see a random object, they're just going to assume it's scenery as opposed to an actual camera. And another spot is in VIP at the top of the bookshelf. You can break the pot and throw your camera up there. It's a fairly obvious spot and people might notice it, but the camera will blend in pretty well if no one's on it, and it can make for really good callouts if the enemies are pushing VIP. And then one more spot that I almost forgot is on DJ booth. You can throw your camera inside the plant itself, and the camera won't be able to see a goddamn thing. So the enemies can constantly be tracked, and they won't know where the camera is unless they have an IQ. Or a Thatcher, I guess. And that's it for my Valkyrie camera placements. Some of them might be obvious to a few of you, but keep in mind that this series is created for beginners, so people who really won't know anything about camera placements. But anyways, moving on, we're going to go into Mira. Mira has a couple really good places to put her black mirrors that can definitely help defend sites, especially on bomb. Probably the most popular spot that I see all the time in ranked is in the hookah hallway, right next to the cool vibe staircase. You can put the mirror on the wall outside of hookah facing inwards to hookah, and then leave one of the walls next to it unreinforced. So as soon as you see them run in, you can easily just shoot them behind the couches or by the door. However, there's a counter to this that I will talk about in the next section. Another popular location is in theater, on the wall between theater and penthouse. Generally, people put the mirror inside theater facing towards penthouse. This is a pretty good spot to see into the room. However, the big issue is if they push in behind you in the theater hallway, then they can easily destroy the mirrors as soon as the door is broken. Another spot is in kitchen. You put it next to the corner shelf facing towards service entrance. However, like other spots, it also has angles on it. If they peek from the hallway from blue bar, they can easily see right to the mirror and destroy it. So instead, a lot of people have been putting them in service entrance facing towards the main lobby. Here, there's really no angles they can get without pushing all the way in. And you can watch into one of the most important rooms, which is the main lobby itself. And that'll be it for the mirror placements. And I think that'll be it for the specific gadget placements overall. I wasn't really sure who else to include here because a lot of other operators you can move your gadgets after the fact and it won't really have a huge impact. However, with Mira it's 100% permanent. With Valkyrie you really don't want to risk running out to get another camera after you already placed it. Generally because they're so far out of the way that it puts you at a huge risk. If there are other operators that you'd like me to talk about in this section, then please let me know in the comment section down below and I'll try to add them in the next episode. But since we have gadgets covered, we're going to move on to specific angles to hold. I did mention a lot of angles that I had listed in the layout portion of the map, but I do have a lot more that I want to discuss. These will primarily benefit attackers, but there are a few for defenders as well. We'll cover the two defensive angles first. The first being an angle that you can hold from theater room all the way to the DJ booth. Way to do is impact this wall to VIP room. And in the window barricaded in VIP room, you can either leave closed or opened depending on what your preference is. I personally prefer to open it. And you go all the way back into the corner theater and you can peek through that impact hole right to the window. So a lot of attackers who are pushing and peeking, you can easily pick them off if they're on the left side of the window. I've also had people rappel all the way in the back and I catch them as they're peeking up. It's a very good spot and definitely prevents people from pushing in easily from the window to take over VIP. And the next defender spot is in the same hallway. If you go to the corner where the vase is, you can pretty much peek both sides very quickly and still be in cover. In that corner, you're not at risk of being shot from either side as long as you're deep into the corner not peeking. A lot of people usually hold this angle with Jaeger because he can peek so quickly and his gun does a lot of damage. Alright, now we're going to move on to the attacker angles. A lot of the attacking angles I did want to talk about I already mentioned, but I do have 5 more. 3 of them are in drone holes and 2 of them are on the roof. We'll start with the 2 roof ones. If you go into the roof of the building and go next to the courtyard, if you go in the southeast corner, you can peek towards the hookah lounge. You'll see the entire hallway, and if you break the vase, you can easily see where the mirror placement would be that I told you about just before. So it is a good place to put it, but there is a direct counter to it. If you're standing there in the hallway watching the mirror, the attackers can easily shoot you if they know about this angle. The next spot is on the other side of the courtyard, and it's just facing towards the aquarium hallway from the same roof. This is technically not a sneaky angle to hold or anything, it's just one that a lot of people forget about. So if someone's holding that angle towards balcony, you can just peek on the roof and shoot them right where they're sitting by the window. Alright, moving on to the drone hole places, there are 3 very important ones to remember. The best of them is by the main entrance peeking into the bathroom. When the defenders are defending kitchen, usually 1 or 2 people will set up by bathroom and service entrance. Usually one of them sitting in this exact corner where the drone hole looks. This is why I highly recommend not setting up here as a defender. And then moving towards blue bar, there's a drone hole from offices that the attackers can peek through. Usually you can't really see anything. It's really hard to see someone's feet unless they're right up against the drone hole, but it is a really good place for grenades. If they're defending blue bar, a defender is very likely hiding next to that bar, so you can easily just chuck a grenade through the drone hole and kill them. And then going up onto the second floor, inside the hallway by hookah lounge, there is a drone hole right into the VIP shelf corner. Since a lot of defenders like to hide there, you can easily see their feet, or you can do the same thing like the offices in blue bar and just throw a grenade in there. In both these places, if you cook the grenade just right, you can easily kill them before they get a chance to run. And that is it for the important attacker angles to remember. And now we're going to move on to vertical destructibility. Coastline actually has a lot of vertical destructibility compared to most maps, but I don't know, maybe if it's just luck of the draw, but I honestly don't see it utilized that much in most of my ranked matches. It is very rare that someone will break the roof above me or the floor below me and try to shoot me through it. You see it utilized a lot more on maps like Skyscraper, but you really don't see it on Coastline that much. But it is something that's important to know. Just to save everyone's time and so I don't go through every single room again, every single room on the top floor has a destructible floor. The only places that don't are the balconies, the bathroom, and the hallway. Every other room has a destructible floor. If it's wood, it's destructible. If it's like a concrete looking thing, it is not destructible. And then there are some very important angles to remember. This kind of ties into the last section, but it's more about vertical destructibility than just an angle. These angles are primarily just for defenders because it is very rare that an attacker will use them. If you go into theater room and break the floor right below the TV, you can see right to the main door in the main lobby. It's a very good way to pick someone off as they're running in. And then if you head over to VIP and open up the floor a little bit to the west of the main window, then you can see right to the kitchen window. So if you're holding kitchen, you can have someone come up here and then just watch that window so they can't jump in. Then you can also run over to hookah to watch sunrise. This is not that commonly used because there's not many good places to hold. Hookah's a lot smaller than sunrise, so you won't actually be able to see the entire bar. You'll only see very specific sections. And then you can also go over to billiards to watch the blue bar window. So basically all these angles are really good at holding doorways and windows to sights. Alright, and that'll cover the destructibility section of this video. And now we're going to move on to default cameras. There are a total of 7 cameras on this map, 3 outside and 4 inside, which makes it very easy to destroy all of them and not have to worry about them later on. There's 1 camera for each of the spawns, 1 at main entrance, 1 at the ruins, and then 1 at the pool side. And then for the 4 cameras inside, there's 1 right outside blue bar in the hallway, and then 1 at the main lobby entrance towards the main staircase. And then going upstairs, there's 2 more, 1 in the main hallway right outside of penthouse, and then the other one's all the way in aquarium in the corner of the room. And that is it. The defenders really don't have much visibility on this map when it comes to cameras. Some maps have upwards of 9 cameras and this one only has 7. And that wraps up the 18th episode of Siege School. And that'll conclude the 18th episode of Siege School. I think I might have missed a thing or two. I know I want to talk more about the spawns, but I talked about them enough in other topics that I didn't really feel like it needed its own separate topic. And in previous videos I talked about the hallways as if they were rooms, and I decided not to do it for this one simply because there's usually not any callouts for it and it's just unnecessary. Whenever I'm making callouts to my friends and we're talking about a hallway, I'll just say at the hallway close to whatever door to whatever room. And if you know the rooms, it's very easy to make that call out. If you don't like these changes, just let me know down below and also recommend me anything that you want to see me do. But yeah, that'll be it. I'm going to do my 2 quick plugs before I go, and that'll be it for the video. Plug number 1, I do stream on Twitch every single day starting at noon Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to be experimenting with some changes to my schedule, but there won't be anything conclusive yet. So for now, it'll still be every single day at noon. So if you want to watch, make sure to tune in by phone, the link on the screen or in the description below, and make sure to follow or subscribe. And plug number 2 is the merch store. There's a link down below, and there's a couple of designs on there, like Siege School and the VarsityGaming logo. This is a good way to support the channel as well as getting something out of it yourself. And that is it. Thank you very much guys for watching, and I hope you enjoyed and learned something new. And like I said before, countless times, if there's anything you want to recommend that I do, please let me know in the comments down below and I'll try to get it in the next video. But yeah, that's it for me. I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.